Oh, yeah. Fish on, baby. Well, g'day folks, and welcome to part 3 of our Soft Plastics 101 for beginners. Thanks for all the feedback and the awesome comments on parts 1 and 2. I'm glad people have got something from these videos, and it's helping them out with getting into soft plastics or lure fishing. That's why I wanted to do this series, and I know some of it's very basic. It might be too basic for a lot of people, but when you start things, you need to learn from the ground up, and I'm really glad that it's helped a lot of you out. For the giveaway, I've got around 45 entries so far, which is amazing. Lots of youngsters, lots of good feedback through Instagram messages about the videos and the giveaway, which is brilliant. Everyone seems to be pretty excited. I've just hit 2,000 followers on Instagram, which, yeah, it's unbelievable. So thanks for that. And I'm going to be doing another giveaway on Instagram of the same combo, with a couple of little bits thrown in as well. And this is going to be a under 18 juniors only, because I want the kit to go to a young fisho, the next generation of anglers to get into soft plastic. And obviously kids can't afford their own gear, so it's going to be a special prize for a youngster. So that's going to be up soon, so keep an eye out for that one. I'm just come out to the shed. I've got the computer and nothing else, and I'm going to do part 3, which is going to be all about Google Earth and systems that I've fished over the past couple of years, and I've got a little bit of knowledge about. So I'm going to run through that on the screen and talk you through how I approach these areas with the methods that we already learnt from part 2 and the soft plastic. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoy this and get something from it, and I'll see you on part 4 when we can actually get out in the boat. Okay, so this is Google Earth. So you can access it on your phone app, or you can access it on your computer via Google. So I've just typed in the first system is Brim River. So there you can see there, the yellow dot, Brim River, that's the town. And this is Sydenham Inlet, which leads into Brim River here, and then goes out through the channel here out to Bass Strait. So the boat ramp for Brim River is over here. That's the only boat ramp. There's no boat ramp up the river like Milo, so you have to be very careful on windy conditions, because when you get a really strong westerly, it can really chop up. So if you've got a small boat or a kayak, you need to be very careful at Brim across the lake when it's windy. So the main Sydenham Inlet is from 1 to 3 metres. There are a few deeper sections near the channel entrance where the channel markers are, but the majority of the lake is 1 to 2 metres deep, so it's quite shallow. Obviously if the entrance is closed and in flood in winter, it might be slightly deeper, but not much. Patchy weed all the way around the edge. You find it's quite weedy all the way around, and just a shallow drop off. So across the middle here, you'll find that it just, 100 millimeters every 50 meters, it'll just shallow drop off. There's a little bit of patchy weed, but not too much in the main lake area. I've had great success through winter and summer for Brim. We were here about 3 weeks ago. Barry and I and Matt and Jade went, and we pretty much fished the centre where these markings are here. And we were in 1.7 to 2 metres of water, and we were fishing Z-Man Slim Swims and Munro's 2.5 inch soft plastics in motor oil on a 1/8 jig head with a size 2 hook, as we went through in the last video, and just single hop and let it sink to the bottom, pause and hop again, and I think we caught, between the 4 of us, 70 fish. Brim, flathead, a few flathead, but mostly Brim, all in this area. So that's a great area to start. What we did find that day, and what I look for when I first go to systems is bait fish. So large schools of bait that the predator fish like brim and flathead are going to be eating, and estuary perch. If you can find the bait, generally you'll find the fish. So have a good look around, and where you can find the bait, if it's in amongst a bit of weed, perfect, you'll find some fish to catch. The next time I went, it was after a large amount of rain, and all this area was brown, and I really struggled to find any bait fish anywhere on the main lake. So what I did is I came down to the channel. So you enter the channel here, and this is quite deep, 11 meters around here, and there's a little, goes up to a shallow point here, drops off deep where that dark water is, and then it goes shallow. I found about 8 flathead sitting in 4.5 meters, 2 to 4.5 meters on that drop off there, and there was a whole heap of mullet, little baby mullet and bait fish right up on the shallow. So obviously the flathead, being an ambush predator, was sitting just on that drop off, waiting for any of the bait fish to come off the edge, and they were just sitting there ready to ambush them. There was probably 8 just in that small section there. I also found a couple just around this point. This is a sandy, steep, not going to say cliff, it's a bit of a slope, and there's deeper water here where this dark water is, and I've picked up 3 or 4 flathead there. I've got some videos, I'll put some links in the description below so you can actually see what I mean. And picked up a few there, and on that day when it was muddy out in the lake, I found the channel was a lot clearer, and in fact up at the end here where it meets the ocean, it was very clear. You know, it's 2 meters deep and I could see the bottom. I picked up a brim on a soft plastic by the entrance. So what I generally look for if I'm out in the main lake at Sydenham Inlet, I look for bait, try and find some bait and some good markings on the sander. Generally, if I don't find the bait, I really struggle in the main lake. When there's a lot of water, we've had a lot of rain, fish tend to sit around the river entrance and around the weed edges. Obviously, there's a lot of bait and food coming out of the river at this point when it's flowing out. So fish tend to hold there, or they'll go and look for clearer water in the channel. This is the river, so you come straight across from the boat ramp this way, and you can go up the river. Now, in the last video, I showed you a hidden weight system of jig head, and all the way up the river you'll find sunken tree branches and snags and things like that. Now, Brim River holds a lot of estuary perch and brim, and you'll tend to find in summer months and winter for the perch as well, they'll hold around all these snags. So you have to get your soft plastics right in there, and I like to use a lightly weighted soft plastic with a hidden weight, say a 2.5 inch grub or a slim swim, with a 1/30th or 1/24th hidden weight jig head, just to flutter it down amongst those branches, and you'll get that tick in the line when the perch or the brim hit. So that's what I like to do. You can also use hard body lures, cranks, chubbies and other crank lures, and surface lures as well, which I'll go in on another video. But yeah, for soft plastics, I use very lightly weighted soft plastics, hopped over the timbers. Now, most of the time around the edge, there's a large amount of like grassy weed. This is a really good area, especially around the river mouth, to target if you want to fish surface lures. So if you want to fish like bent minnows or surface cicadas when they're hatching in summer and things like that. Really good to flick some surface lures for brim and estuary perch around the weedy edges as well. All around this south side is a lot of tree branches, and the brim hold up in there as well. So you can catch on the surface in the morning for the first hour or two, and then as the sun comes up, you'll find that the surface slows down, surface bite slows down, and then they'll just drop off this weedy edge, and if you position your boat and cast pretty much on the edge of the weed and hop it back, you'll find that the brim and estuary perch will be feeding there as well. So when the early morning, try on the surface and then use your plastics to target just the drop off into clearer water from a weed bed. Okay, so that's Bem River, and as I say, lightly weighted plastics in the river. Main lake, I'm generally running a 1/8 to a 1/16 because you're only in 1 to 2.5 meters of water. Obviously, if it's windy, I'll probably use a 1/8 just so as I've got more control on the soft plastic. You can feel it a bit more and you're in touch with it more. If you're fishing the channel, you know, if the fish are holding up, I had one November a couple of years ago, the brim was spawning around this area here, around this bend, and it was 10 meters. So I was using a 1/8 then. There wasn't any flow, but if the entrance was open and you've got, you know, the system becomes tidal, you might want to go to a 1/6 with a size 2 hook. So it's all about that feel on the day, getting it down to where you need it to be, and presenting that soft plastic the best you can on that day. So you've always got to be thinking and ready to change things. Alright, so next system, we're going to go to so this is South Gippsland, it's Anderson Inlet. I've only fished this a couple of times, but it's a beautiful system. It's very tidal, it's open, the entrance is open all year round, it's very tidal. Large tides, big movements, so it's a very different system to a lot of the East Gippsland estuaries. So the entrance is to the left here, and the water flows in here from left to right. So the main boat ramp is over in the town here, and there's another boat ramp, Maha's Landing, which is over to the right here. So when I fish Anderson, I'm generally targeting flathead, either in the boat or land-based. So if I'm land-based, I generally come over to this end and go to Venus Bay, which is Doyle's Road, and then I walk along the bank here at a high tide. You can walk all the way along to here. So on high tide, you'll find flathead move right up in onto these sand flats and the shallows, chasing the bait fish. Especially in summer, the warmer months, they'll get right up here. And on the edge, there's a large amount of mangroves, so the flathead will sit right in the little mangrove stumps and roots, waiting for bait fish. Now, as soon as the tide turns around and starts flowing back out, the flathead will move with the bait as the tide drops, and then they'll sit in these channels here. So then as the bait fish is coming off the sand flats, the flathead are there to ambush in these deeper channels. It's perfect for them. So I fish all these sand flats and shallow areas on high tide when the flathead move up there. As the tide's probably halfway and going out, the run out tide's halfway and continuing to get lower, I would fish these pressure points here. So these points right here, you've got a really good ambush point. You know, that's a nice deep channel that you could probably access off the bank, and I'd position up in the boat and just fish it back out this way towards the entrance, and you'll find the flathead will gradually move out of this channel chasing the bait fish. In fact, Barry and I caught quite a few here the other month. Doing that thing, there's a little bit of weed, so where you've got weed and a channel, it's perfect for flathead because they're an ambush predator. So what I do is try and think, what's the fish going to do? You know, I'm a flathead, I need to eat. Where's the best place for me to going to be? You know, I'm an ambush predator. I lie in the sand in the best spot to try and ambush bait fish as it comes off a ledge, comes off a weed edge, or comes off a sand flat. So you just look at a map and try and think as a flathead would and find the best ambush points. So same here, you've got that deep channel this side with a nice shallow sandbank there. I'd position here as all this water's moving back out this way. So is the bait fish, and the flathead would be sitting right on these little pressure points here. Other places to look for on any system, so this accounts for any system, is there's a creek. So this is Screw Creek, which holds estuary perch and brim. So good for land-based. And on high tide, all this area is full of water. Now it might only be a metre, metre and a half, but all the bait will be running up here, coming into this warmer water, all your bait fish, so your flathead move onto this sandy area as well. And there's a lot of crabs as well, crustaceans and yabbies and worms are on these sandbanks. So obviously when the water moves up at high tide, all the crabs and all the worms and yabbies come out. So that's great food for the fish as well. So they move on, have a good feed, and then as the tide's going back out, they'll just follow it all back out, and then at the end there, they'll sit right in these pressure points here. That's obviously a deeper channel where the creek goes in. So all the bait fish would be pretty much coming out of there like a funnel, and the flathead would sit right on this point here. So if you're positioning your boat, casting into these channels, you know, an hour before low tide, or an hour after low tide, you're going to pick up flathead, guaranteed. So another way you can look is on low tide. If you can pull your boat up and go for a walk. All this is fine to walk on, and what you'll see is the lies where flathead have been. So they dig themselves in the sand, and it forms the shape of a flathead. So larger on one end down to a point on the other end. So if you can walk around and find those signs, you know, if you've got a large number that sit here, you know, you might have 6 or 7 lies. The chances are the next high tide, they're going to be up there again. So you can really use that to target these certain areas. You might not have any over here, but there might be a whole heap over this side. So use the low tides to go for an explore, see where the yabby holes and the crab holes are, because as long as there's food on these flats, fish will get up there to feed on the bait. And in winter, there's a large amount of Australian salmon get into these deeper channels as well. So with the salmon, I generally look for birds breaking the surface, a bust up as they call it, and that generally means you've got salmon driving up the bait fish from the bottom. They're breaking the surface, and then you've got birds feeding on the bait fish as well. So it's a massive ecosystem where like everything tends to help each other. So look at wildlife and what they're doing. If you see birds crashing the surface, chances are there's bait fish and there's predator fish that are driving them up to the surface. So look for that in winter as well. You do get snapper. Obviously these darker channels are the deeper water. Certain times of year you do get snapper and whiting and gummy shark in here as well, which you'd be able to find in the deeper channels on the pressure points like these corners here, and probably here where the bait comes out. Alright, on to the next one. Alright, we'll go to Port Melbourne. So this is a great tool for fishermen, for anglers. It's yeah, I'm always on here. It's you can save all of the projects, and it's yeah, it's just magic. So jump on Google Earth, have a good look around. So this is in the city. Williamstown Boat Ramp is here, and this is Port Melbourne, so where all the big ships and the Spirit of Tasmania come, and cruise ships and that. So I normally catch a lot of pinkies, flathead and snook. So I come out of here, go around the corner, and I generally start right here where that little mark is. So this is a bay. So along here, along this left-hand wall here, there's a rocky wall, which is a couple of meters deep pretty much straight away. It goes to about here, and then it becomes a sandy beach. So what I've found, just on that line where the rocky wall meets the sand, there's a nice drop off. And there's a little bit of weed. If you get in, if it's high tide, I normally go in quite shallow to 2 meters and cast amongst the weed. And you pick up little pinkies and flathead. And then I love the turnaround tide. So as the tide's turned around, it's just coming back out. There's a nice drop off from 3 meters down to about 4 meters. So I've found that all along here, you fish that 3 meter drop off down to 4 meters. And as the tide's running back out, and you can pick up flathead because they're waiting there for the bait fish to come back off the shallows and the weedy edges and that. And you can get snapper there as well. Snook, obviously, everything's chasing that bait fish. So wherever you got bait, you've got bigger fish to catch, predator fish. If that goes slow, then you can come across to here. Now this is Princess Pier. That's the new Princess Pier. And let's see if I can show you this way. It's not very clear. So these are the poles. So these are the old pylons for the old Princess Pier. I believe it was closed down in the 90s due to structure faults and things like that. But it's left a whole heap of poles. I've got videos on the YouTube channel, so check those out. And that gives brilliant structure for bait fish to hide and feel safe amongst, which obviously encourages snapper and other fish, predator fish, to hunt in there. So you find a lot of snapper, especially in winter, get right in amongst that structure, and you can catch 50, 60 centimeter snapper. A lot of 40s in winter from this area. So it's really, really good. Good structure. Generally, where you find structure, whether it's pylons, weed beds, rocks. If you're searching this whole area and you find a pile of rocks, or the sand comes up a couple of meters, generally you'll find fish holding on the structure. Just seems to make them feel more comfortable. But yeah, generally I fish this bay with 2 hours of the run-in tide and fish the shallows, and then I fish a few hours of the outgoing tide and catch flathead. There's all videos on my YouTube channel, so you can see what I mean. I'll put all the links in this video. So this is another East Gippsland system. This will be the final one. So this is one of my favourite systems. So I don't like to give this place away because it's a very small system that can't take a lot of pressure. So I'll just, a lot of my videos were here in winter. We fished this bay, and what you've got is a big, thick, the weed comes right out here. And right by the side of the weed, you've got a lot of brim in winter, just because it's 4 to 6 meters deep right there as well. So brim in winter, they tend to hold in deeper water because that seems to be the warmer water in winter, and the warmer water in summer is the shallow. That's in Victoria. So we were finding, brim feeding on the edges of the weed with bait fish. We often caught them, and they'd cough up chunks of little silver bait fish. So other areas to target. So we were using a 1/8 jig head with a size 2 hook, obviously targeting brim, so you need a small hook. 1/8 jig head was perfect to get it down to the bottom fairly quickly, but not too quick to take all the action away from the lure. We wanted the soft plastic to flutter down in the fish's face and to look really natural. So we found that was a good medium for that water. So other points here, you can see here, there's a crease, that's a shallow sandbank. So in summer, we were hopping soft plastics. We were like here, and we were throwing soft plastics up onto here, hopping them off that shelf. So when I say shelf, I mean like a shallow point to a deeper point, like a drop off. You'll find there's a bit of weed, and the flathead, you might get 15, 20 flathead just off this one point. They just stack up there waiting for the bait fish. For the flathead, in this system, we used a 1/4" jig head with a 2/0 or 3/0 hook, depending on the size of the plastic, which we were using 3-inch Z-Man minnows and Munro's 3.75-inch soft plastics. 1/4 ounce is pretty much perfect for all of the areas we're going to be fishing for flathead in this inlet. There's another point there, you can see, comes off that point, and then you got a big shallow weedy sandbar here, and yeah, fine flathead all along here and all along this side as well. As you come down to the entrance, this is quite deep through the middle here with rocky edges, and all the way along here was very shallow, patchy weed, and same as Brim River, you can get big flathead on surface and shallow diving lures and jerk baits in amongst all the weed here. So that's something to think about in summer with your lures. And as you go up the river, there's another boat ramp here. This is where we call a heap of flathead. So there's a sandy point that comes right out here, and the flathead, when the entrance is open, obviously when the tide turns, all of the bait has got to come out of this little channel here. So you've got bait streaming out of here, and the flathead were just sitting all around here waiting to ambush all the bait that's coming out. It's just so easy for them to get food there. So, and you've got bait coming this way, bait coming this way, an ambush point on this bend as well, and you've got another little creek that's coming out of here as well. So that's an amazing ambush point for flathead and baitfish. You know, you've got all these points here, here, nice sandy spit. They can sit on the edges of these, and also we found them here. So this is a shallow lake here, which is about 1.5 to 2 meters deep, and then you've got the channel, the deeper channel, which is about 4 or 5 meters in parts. And then we found there's a sandy patch right there into a deeper area here. So right on this corner there was a sandy shelf, and we found that when the tide's coming out, so the water's flowing left to right from this channel, we were sitting here casting lures into here, hopping it back off the shelf, and flathead were just queuing up right there as well. Before the entrance was open, we used to fish further up when there was a lot of water. We couldn't actually access it last time due to being too shallow and weedy. See this beautiful sandbar here. So that was all full of water all the way up to the trees. And flathead would just, we found that in the afternoon through late winter, early spring, obviously the sun would come from right to left. So the sun's over here in the arvo, it would heat up this shallow sandy bar, and you'd find the last 2 hours a heap of flathead would sit on here chasing bait, and you know, you might get, I think I got 12 flathead just there in an hour. They wouldn't be there in the morning, but as soon as the sun came around and warmed up that shallow, they were there. And we also got some off this little point here, but now it's you know, the channel was open. I was hoping to get up there because I believe they'd be on this second drop off, sitting in the channel there, especially as the tide turns and all the bait fish have got to come back down here. I presume they'd be sitting right here on the ambush point, or here. So that's that little beautiful inlet. It's one of my favourite places, and I'll be back there this winter. And the Brim, yeah, generally here. We did find some here the first time we went, a lot of big Brim, and but same with Bam, same with the Anderson Inlet. Look for bait. Generally, if you haven't got bait fish on the sand, or there's no reason for any ambush predators or fish to be sitting there, it's going to be a lot of hard work for them to get a feed. And it's, you know, during winter they're not active, so they don't want to work for their food. They want to be in the easy spot where there's a lot of bait. In summer they'll work the shallows over the weed edges. You know, all of this all around here is all weed, so you'll get them feeding on the surface and over these weed beds chasing fish. Their metabolism's up and they're really active, so you can catch them on shallow diving lures and things like that. But soft plastics in winter is where it really comes in, when you're targeting that deeper water and the fish are feeding on the bottom. So same thing, look for the weed edges, look for your bait, and you'll find the brim, and you'll find flathead as well. So that's it. That's 4 systems, you know, that I've fished quite regular. I'll just go back to Inlet. So just want to talk jig heads on Inlet. So this is Anderson Inlet. Because this water runs and flows so much, your jig head size, so I'm targeting flathead, so I'm still using that 2030 hooks. But I found the first time that I went there, I only had 1/4 inch jig heads, which did the job, but when the tide was really flowing out, it wasn't enough weight to have a lot of control over it. So I bought some 3/8 of an ounce and 1/2 ounce. So when that tide was really humming through there, coming out of these channels, I could actually hit the bottom and felt like I had a bit more holding on the bottom. Because flathead, you need to be hitting that sand. So yeah, think about that, the tidal movements and the, you know, the kind of weights you're going to need to get down to the fish and fish effectively. So yeah, 3/8 of an ounce and 1/2 an ounce did a great job the second time, and we caught twice as many fish. So that's about it. So use Google Earth. Obviously you can see it's a great tool. It's an aerial shot of your location. You can see your deep areas, your shallow areas. You can mark out on these maps that I've done where I would fish and how I want to target them. You can even write, you know, 1/8 jig heads, blah blah blah, or whenever you catch a fish, this will always stay on your computer. You can mark caught 20 brim here on this and caught 10 flathead there on this. So it's a good record of what you've done. So that's about it. That's part 3. Use this tool. It's amazing. You can find, you know, new spots to fish, and you can really plan a trip before you even see the location, and roughly know what gear you're going to be using. So if you have any questions, leave it in the comments and I'll try and answer them. But yep, get the Google Earth app on your phone and have a mess around and have a good look with it. So if you got any questions, please post the comments, and please like and subscribe and like the video, share it around. It all helps, and I will be drawing the giveaway on Friday, the first giveaway on Friday. So stay tuned for that one. I'll do a YouTube video and I'll announce it on Facebook and Instagram, which you should all be following for the entry. And yeah, so I'll see you Friday with the draw. Thanks again, and stay safe, and I'll catch you soon.